What is up, everyone? Brandon First, aka First Report. Welcome to the ChangeUp episode 2. Time to talk baseball with my co-host. Could not do this without her, Bryanna Winner, aka the Winner Circle. How are you doing today, Bryanna?
I'm good. Exhausted, but good.
It's always a good day. You got to get through the day and talk a little baseball. Obviously, we do have baseball going on, and the championship series full steam ahead as currently right now, game 2, the Braves and the Dodgers going at it. And of course, later tonight, the Rays and Astros will go at it as well. But before we get to all of that, let's give you a rundown of who we are. I mean, obviously, my name is Brandon First. Already went through that. Follow me on Twitter at FerstReport. And of course, Bryanna Winner at BWinner12. And look, we are, of course, representing the Ramblin' and Gamblin' Sports Network. So give them a follow at And Gamblin' on Twitter and follow us on YouTube as well. Can't wait to get into all of this. The division series, it was really weird. Obviously, it's the first time we've ever seen a 3-game wild card series. I likened it to the super regionals in college baseball. And obviously, this last round was a little more, I guess, what we're used to. Now, the neutral sites made it a little more interesting, but we're used to those kind of 5-game series. Not only one game goes the distance, or only one series goes the distance, but let's break down those series. First, let's start with the Astros and the A's. Why don't you get us started there? If you've listened to us all the way through, even before we started the ChangeUp, we have been very, very low on the Astros, so we are both on this podcast a little down when this.
Shall we mention Trevor Bauer's tweet?
I think we should.
So obviously he's trying to decide where he's going to go next. So he sent out a tweet today to Angels fans. I responded, "You'll get to play the Houston Cheaters," I mean Astros, multiple times since they're in the same division. So I would be on the lookout for that because he's a huge Houston hater, especially after those trash can cleats.
Yes. Among other things, many other things.
I mean, he's looking for the next place to go, so maybe it's with the Angels.
It's a great call. You would know he really wants a chance at the Astros. And I think the Astros now, if they weren't already public enemy number one, the fact that they made the playoffs with under 500 record and beat the Twins, who I actually picked to win the American League when I filled out that bracket. I'm man enough to admit I was wrong. But the Astros obviously go and take care of the A's in a series that kind of resembled I heard someone say kind of the Little League World Series. Just a lot of kids just hitting bombs, and whoever hit the most home runs won the game and the series, and that's pretty much what happened.
I mean, we were all rooting for you, A's. Like, you were the top team in the AL West. You just couldn't get it done. What happened? You beat the Astros multiple times in the season. Seriously, what happened?
And they had the hate factor with the Alex Cintrone and the Laureano scuffle. And I mean, let's not go back to the very beginning. I mean, the heart of this whole thing literally sits in the dugout of the Oakland A's. It's Mike Fiers. He's the one who literally lit the fire and was the one who came out and said, this is what's happening, that got all this rolling. So obviously, they're American League, so you'll never see Mike Fiers get up to bat against the Astros, but he might wear one there. For the Astros, though, look, I think them very similar to the Yankees. They took advantage of the DL all season. They knew that if, with all due respect to the rest of the teams in the American League West, unfortunately, they knew, they almost got ran down by the Angels late. If the Angels, obviously, Bryanna knows, if they would have had some bullpen, they probably would have made the playoffs. But I really think the Astros,
if they didn't have the Dodgers for the last weekend.
The last weekend of the series, having the Dodgers was tough for the Angels. But the Astros, I think, just kind of were able to coast into that number 2 spot. But for the A's, really frustrating for a team that, I mean, haven't we seen this literally every year? I mean, they win the West or make the playoffs or get to the wild card game and they blow it. They're everyone's, Moneyball pick or whatever, and then they can't get out of the first round. Just blows my mind. Billy Beane continues to chase. I mean, I think it's been well over 10 years since they won a playoff series, let alone a World Series. Never won a World Series under Billy Beane. It's been since the Bash brothers, since the A's won there. So unfortunately, all of the baseball world put a collective middle finger up. Actually, two. I think they kept one up for the Astros, and then they gave one to the A's too. Like, you guys aren't full away from blame here too. You should have taken care of these people.
I mean, if you look at what's happening now, which we'll get into, I'm sure everybody's throwing a massive middle finger at the Astros right now.
Oh yeah, well, and it's a perfect and poetic justice if it goes, and like we said, we will get to that in a bit. If it goes the way I think it will go, I think it will maybe a bit of a poetic justice when it's all said and done. We might have actually preferred maybe the way the Astros go out this way. Anyways, to the next series, it was the Yankees and Rays, and this was a very interesting one because the Rays have kind of been the kind of stepbrother, or at least budget wise, obviously very, very small compared to the Yankees, and the Yankees are kind of these bashers and all of that. And for me, the Yankees continue to be plagued by overpaid players. And yes, I am looking at Aroldis Chapman. There are a lot of times I will put my hands up and understand that these guys have more talent in the fingernail that they just clipped off than I will ever have in my entire life, even on their worst days. So I try and stay away from bashing people, but the human being that is Aroldis Chapman, I have absolutely no problem bashing this man, and I don't think that it could have happened to a more deserving human being. For the second year in a row, Aroldis Chapman has that shit smile on his face after he gives up the home run for the second year in a row. So good for him to really lose again in a series that in basketball, they talk about the tempo and, the Suns back in the day with Mike D'Antoni, they want to win 140 to 138. The Rays want to beat you 3-1. And that's exactly what they did for the most part to the Yankees. They kind of beat them down to their level. Really, really impressed with the Rays because I was worried. I picked the Yankees to win the series. I just thought that they were going to get it done. And Bryanna will, I'm sure, remind you of who she picked in a
I picked the Rays.
Yes, she did. And it was a great call. And I should have picked the Rays as well. I don't think it was anything other than the NY and the pinstripes. I think it scared me away, and it is what it is.
I think those big bats in the lineup scared you away, but like I said last week, it's only if they stay healthy, which most of the season they haven't been. So I don't think they were cohesive as a team because most of the time one of those big bats was gone. At one point, I think all three of them were gone. So, I mean, I think that also had a contribution to it, but I did call the Rays.
You did, and
I'm happy for it.
It was a great call, and I'm very happy to be wrong. That happened.
Especially with what's happening right now.
Exactly. Yes, 100%. But for the Yankees, they have a lot of questions. Obviously, we know they have, for the most part, a blank check status. But DJ LeMahieu is going to be the top free agent. He is going to command a lot of money. I don't know if the Yankees can shell out another $200 million because I do really think DJ LeMahieu is going to get that. Maybe because it is second base or third base, not the top position. It might be a little less than that, but I don't know if they're going to be able to shed that type of money. Now, does he maybe come down a little to stay there? But for the Rays, they move on. I mean, technically they move on. They will stay stationary. They're right down the road from me, about 15 minutes away at Petco Park, where they're playing the American League Championship Series against, of course, the team we talked about earlier, those damn dirty cheaters. We'll get to that in a bit. But moving to the National League Division Series, it was the juggernaut Miami Marlins. And when I say juggernaut Miami Marlins, I don't necessarily mean this team. I just mean the Miami Marlins in the postseason. It's never been done. No one's ever beaten them. Well, that ended. The Atlanta Braves swept them right out of town or wherever, out of Arlington, and really took care of business. Or I guess, no, they were in Houston, excuse me, and took care of business in really dominant fashion. Kind of the way they went about their work all season in the National League East. They weren't pressed all season from any of those teams. And I think it's showing here, even in this series right now. They're very rested, and they've yet to lose a game in the postseason. The Braves are just absolutely on fire.
I think I called the Braves too.
You did. I did too. I did not call the Marlins, but I did too. But
I mean, the Marlins got lucky. with the Cubs. But then again, the Cubs were struggling to hit throughout the season. The Braves have not. Like, they have been hitting, and they definitely proved it this week with their games against the Marlins. The Marlins, I think they feel lucky just to have gotten as far as they did. I think nobody expected them to get as far as they did. So I think that's just an accomplishment in and of itself at this point.
Exactly. And I brought it up, and it's kind of foreshadowing to the Padres-Dodgers series, but I said, look, the Padres are happy to be here. The Dodgers expect to be here. There is a big difference in that, and that's kind of what we looked at with the Marlins and the Braves. The Marlins exceeded expectations. I mean, look, the Padres exceeded expectations, but I think most people expected the Padres to be competitive this year, bare minimum. The Marlins, with everything they dealt with, I mean, they could have maybe won 15 games this year, and you would have gone, yeah, that's about right. Don Mattingly still got the job done. But now all of a sudden, Don Mattingly's probably, could be looking at a Manager of the Year award. And obviously, they would have liked to get a win in that series against a rival like the Braves, but wasn't meant to be. And look, you can't hit or you can't score runs, you're not going to win baseball games. And the Braves are doing a really good job of keeping the other team off the scoreboard. Moving on to a subject that's a little tough to go over, but we're here for everyone, and it is, of course, the Padres and Dodgers recap. And look, game one, we as a fan base woke up Tuesday morning to, at least I did, to Mike Clevenger tweeting the Undertaker gif where he sits up from the coffin, which was pretty much for me knowing, okay, he's pitching tonight, him back from the dead, if you will. All of San Diego thinking, okay, here we go. Mike Clevenger is at least healthy, and he's going to pitch in this series going in game one. Doesn't make it through, I believe, the second inning. Really, really rough stuff. I said before the game, I really don't care if we win this game. I just want Clevenger to leave under his own power. That did not happen. I mean, technically he did, but he was walked off with the trainer. He was hurt. I just question the medical staff at this point. I don't have a medical degree. I have nothing anywhere near it. But the people in these positions probably need to, I just don't understand how, for seems like the third time in 4 weeks, or at least the third time in 3 starts for this guy, he's left unexpectedly and they continue to throw him out there. It just didn't make a ton of sense to me. And obviously Dinelson Lamet did not make the roster. Padres were immediately behind the 8 ball. Their best chance was game 2. There's absolutely no doubt about it. Zach Davies went out there, did the best he could. I mean, he pitched well, but that Dodger team is ferocious. And the Cody Bellinger catch on Fernando Tatis Jr. Look, I love the Padres. I hate the Dodgers, but at some point you got to take your hat off and just tip your cap. That was a great catch. The Brewster Gratterall throwing his mitt and hat all over the field. Now the Padres taking exception to that. They're not going to get a whole lot of sympathy on the national stage because they're kind of the poster child for showing emotion. But for me, it's very similar. Like when a cornerback, a quarterback overthrows the wide receiver by 15 yards, and then the cornerback who is covering the wide receiver dances around like he made a play. It's kind of like Brewster Gratterall did. Like he celebrated, like, dude, you gave up a 410-foot jack shot, and you're just lucky that Bellinger's glove was able to get there, or else the Padres are leading and they win that game. Do they win the series? I doubt it, but it would have been nice to get one. Didn't happen. And then obviously game 3, nightmare fuel. Don't want to talk about it.
Well, first, I thought you weren't even going to say their name.
Well, I wasn't going to until, it's over. It's done. You get fired up sometimes, and then you see your team just match up, and the adrenaline kind of goes away. And at least for me, I'm a realist. I realized very early in that, when Clevenger went down, and then when you could just kind of tell, look, Nola's not hitting. They're just not hitting with runners in scoring position. It's just not going to happen. I almost kind of just, I don't want to say like turtled and just got into my little safe space and just said, oh, I'm just going to enjoy baseball. But the Dodgers, I hate them, but at the same time, they're a hell of a baseball team. I wish them nothing but the worst, at least on the baseball field. I don't really have anything against any of the players, maybe a couple of them. But you know, look, I hope they lose and I hope we all laugh at them. But at the same time, they were the better team, and they get credit for that. I would have liked to get one. So.
Well, either way in this series, I had to say their name because you're both down south from me. So I didn't have a choice. But I mean, with Clevenger down, it kind of sucks just because like you expected him to go so far. I mean, I think what they were thinking was like he also was like, I think he kept probably saying that he was healthy enough. The trainers agreed with him, and then he went out, and then something just ended up going horribly wrong. I don't know what this injury was, but it probably was maybe a hand or a leg injury because who knows. But I mean, the Dodgers were the better team. I know we both picked the Padres just because we really hate the Dodgers. I mean, there's nothing more to say to it, but I mean, the Dodgers made it. They're probably going to choke. So I think it'll make us feel better.
I think so. And, you know, I mean, as I say right now, the the Dodgers are down 3-0 with Ronald Acuna at bat, top of the fifth, runner in scoring position, a runner on second, that is. And of course, Kershaw, big scratch today, back spasms. Look, Tony Gonsolin has pitched. He has good stuff. The Braves are a level up from the Padres. I think the Braves are 3 years ahead of where the Padres are. The Braves are that good. Yeah, I call them a young old team. When you have a lot like Acuna at 23, but what, it's year 4 or year 3. Albies, all these guys, even Freeman's been in the league for what, 10 years. He's only 31 or 32. A lot of veteran stuff, but a lot of youth as well. Braves are a hell of a team, but we'll get to that in a moment. What about these neutral locations here for the championship series? I think the lingo now, I don't think it's neutral anymore. I believe it's only bubble. I think it's the bubble.
Well, these bubble fields were all in the West, so it kind of was more of an advantage for the teams in the West that are still in. But I think it's just funny that it's not looking that way. I think the teams from the East are like dominating to the point where these fields don't even matter, even if the teams from the West have been playing at them all year. But I mean, MLB, come on, you can't make it in one part of the country where you know that there are going to be teams going in. Like, you can't do it.
Yeah, I think I'll give MLB a pass, honestly, just in terms of this, because no, okay, maybe not a full pass, because it should have been something that was talked about in the first installment of it. I do think they were just trying to get it out though, because this wasn't really talked about until, I mean, a month into the season. So it's not like this was set in stone early on. And you had brought something up a couple podcasts ago about the teams that played, like you said, in the West. They had played in these stadiums, and when you look at the Globe Life Park in Arlington, I believe that's where it still is, in Texas, where the Rangers play in the National League Championship Series. If there's a lot, their outfield is very weird in terms of the ins and outs of it. There are a lot of place markers that have significance for the franchise. And in terms of, I think maybe like down the left field line, it's 345 because they used to be the Colt 45s. And then there's one that has like as so many Nolan
That's
Ryan.
Houston.
Yeah. So
that's Houston, not the Rangers.
Yes. Well, you're right. But one way or another, the numbers have been cut into the ballpark, and there's a lot of weird. We see it used to be at Houston. We love the little bump and the flagpole at Minute Maid Park, and you know who hated it? Center fielders, because nobody plays on a field where you have to run up a half a mound, and it's kind of how it is. At Globe Life, where there's a lot of little. I saw it in the Padre Dodger series. A lot of doubles that get stuck, that turn into triples. They expect it to continue down along the way, and it just jets out into left and right field, and they're stuck. Nothing they can do. But I will have to point out the Astros currently are 0-5 at Petco Park this year. 3 came at the hands of the Padres, and two have come at the hands of the Rays. So hopefully they'll add 2 more on. But that is the next series we're going to talk about, is the Astros and the Rays down here at Petco Park. What are your thoughts on that? This series that, I mean, unless you're an Astros fan, everyone knows where your allegiance lies.
Yeah. I mean, before this series even started, I was saying that the Rays were going to win. Hell, I even told you that they were going to beat the freaking Yankees, and you didn't believe me. So, I mean, I'm just going to stick with the Rays. Obviously, they're up 2-0 right now, and they're playing again later today. I don't think the Astros have a chance of coming back unless something magical happens where injuries just plague the Rays, but I don't think that's going to happen. So I think the Rays, or not the Rays, the Astros are done for. And I think it is, like you said, poetic justice because they are losing. And I really want them to get swept. That would be the best thing to happen, would be for these cheaters to get swept. And obviously 2020 is a weird year in itself. But I think the Astros definitely deserved more of a penalty, and I think this will definitely be it.
100%. And it's still nowhere near what it should be, but
but I mean, this will help.
Oh yeah, it'll help. And there is another base hit for our wonderful friends out there in Atlanta, 4-0 Braves. And for in going back to this series, the Astros weren't really set up. Obviously, losing Garrett Cole to the Yankees and all the turmoil, not turmoil, but everything they had to deal with in spring training. They talked a lot about they weren't necessarily comfortable in those at bats because they weren't sure if they were going to get hit. And look, if that's the biggest punishment these guys get, that they're uncomfortable at bat, they got away with
way too much.
Yeah, exactly. But we're also seeing here in the last couple games, I really do think this team start to kind of implode. We saw yesterday the team, the Rays only get really one run or one swing of the bat. It's Manny Margot's 3-run home run. And that doesn't happen Altuve, go look at Jose Altuve's error. There are little league coaches that don't berate kids, but that would berate kids for making that throw and that effort at first base. It was terrible. It looked like a team that just didn't want to be there. I can't wait to see this team go down in flames. I am 100% behind you in that. We are on the same page.
Yeah. And I mean, there are other errors that like people will bash major leaguers on, like a basket catch, because that's definitely not happened, but I've seen it. I don't know how they come away with it, but
when it's 2 outs and the next batter hits literally the only runs of the game, it's definitely magnified. And it's Jose Altuve. Look, he was everyone's favorite. He's the guy, and his story's great. Don't get me wrong. Before he knew what pitches were coming, he went to 3 different tryouts in, I believe, Puerto Rico, and they told him, twice, don't come back. You're too small. Like, what are you doing here? You're wasting your time. Finally, he had whatever good workout. They signed him for the absolute minimum. He ends up becoming an MVP at 5'6". Hats off to him. Now he cheated his way to it. So, not that much, but I also do believe me, these guys aren't just, AA hitters now. That's not necessarily the case, but they're definitely not 300 hitters as we saw from Altuve this year. And I do see the poetic justice. I will say, I do like Dusty Baker. He obviously has absolutely nothing to do with everything. He's just, I guess, guilty by association. But yeah, I do think these are going to be the last final games that we will see Dusty Baker as a manager. I don't see Dusty Baker coming back to Houston next year. None of these holdover managers, the Boston and Houston, I really think are going to stick around. I really actually could possibly see both going back. Maybe I definitely think Joey Cora goes to Boston. I think he goes. I'm sorry, not Joey Cora, Alex Cora. I don't know why I'm thinking of Joey Cora, but the next up is going to be the series we've been kind of alluding to, the Braves and the Dodgers at the moment. Of course, the series is 1-0 Braves after a big 9th inning last night in Game 1. Austin Riley hits a big home run off Blake Trinan, and then the rest of things get rolling for the Braves. And as I said, currently still only 1 out, top of the 5th, runners on the corners, and bases are now loaded, but it's still 4-0 Braves. So, and Ian Anderson at this point, this is a long inning. I'm not going to lie. If they blow this open, they might take him out just to kind of save him. He's a young kid. At this point, they're probably looking at about a half hour, half inning. But anyways, it does look like the Braves will be up 2-0. And look, I expected the Braves to win this series. I did not expect the Braves to be up 2-0, and I'm knocking on wood as I say that. I understand the jinx and all that. There's still plenty of baseball to be played. But as of right now, it does look like that's the case. I just think the Braves pitching staff, which going into the postseason, I really thought was going to be their biggest detriment and their downfall. And now all of a sudden, it is their without a doubt, their strength. I think I saw something going into last night's game or even after last night's game. They have a team ERA of 0.96. It's the second lowest through, I think, 5 games in postseason history. Blows my mind. And we're talking about dead ball history, folks. I mean, the 20s and stuff like that to win. You hit the ball as hard as you could and it went 12 feet. So it's very, very impressive to see what the Braves are doing. What are your thoughts on the Braves-Dodgers series?
I don't expect it to be a sweep. I expect the Dodgers to get at least one, but I think it also depends on who's pitching, because I feel like maybe they do better with certain pitchers, like defensively, but obviously they haven't faced the Braves all year, so I think that's also kind of contributing to it. But the Dodgers, I was about to say Lakers, the Dodgers, they had the best record in baseball, and I think the Braves were like right behind them. But I mean, I before yesterday, I'm like, Braves are going to win. Braves are going to win this series. I don't care. Sorry, Dodger loving family and friends. I don't think the Dodgers are going to win. I think they're going to choke again. And I really would love the Braves to beat the Dodgers and for the Rays to beat the Astros. That would be my dream at this point.
I would absolutely love it. Now, a sweep would be great.
I don't think it's going to happen.
I don't think it'll happen. Dodgers are too good of a team. But if I could, if whatever the baseball gods came down and said, you get to call this series, you get to determine how this goes, I would have this, be a 7-game series and the Dodgers put up 10 runs in the first inning in game 7. And the Braves just slowly chip down in that lead. And then we really see the choke come full circle, with Kershaw. But I really do think this could possibly, even with the developments we're seeing at this moment, once again, nothing's final, but it certainly has quite a hill for the Dodgers to go down or go up, I should say. More than likely going down 2-0, and it's going to be tough for this team to come back. Kershaw, they're hoping will be ready for Thursday, but I mean, even Kershaw in the postseason against this lineup, do you trust Clayton Kershaw in an elimination game? I sure as hell don't, and Bryanna doesn't either. I don't think too many people. I don't know if Clayton Kershaw trusts Clayton Kershaw in an elimination game. But
I mean, I don't trust Jansen if he comes in.
That's another great point. And at this point, that's almost like the Dodgers will be happy if they have that problem at this point, because Jansen is the furthest thing from the problem in this series. And it's even in the Padres series, we saw Kenley Jansen he is a ticking time bomb. He didn't blow anything. He got very close, but he didn't blow anything in that series. And even against the Brewers, once again, didn't allow any runs. But I think game 2, when they closed it out, they ended up giving the save opportunity to Gratterall. So I kind of felt maybe a shift in momentum there. Kenley Jansen, man, he's an enigma. I look at him and sometimes his stuff, I don't know how people make contact. And then I see his stuff and I wonder how he can put it over the plate. He's a walk machine, and he relies way too heavily on his fastball. That really doesn't move a whole lot. But when it is coming in at 98, you're probably going to be okay most of the time. But moving on to some of the news that's kind of been off the diamond. Obviously, a person that I thought he was my pick for American League Manager of the Year, Rick Renteria, will not return to Chicago. The White Sox, that now is, and it was mutual apparently. But I mean, what do we read into that? I think we can all kind of maybe roll our eyes and know that, okay, we're not really going to know the full story, but he will not return to Chicago to the White Sox, which is unfortunate. I talked about Rick Renteria. I felt he got hard done in with the Cubs, still in Chicago, but with the Cubs, when before Joe Madden became available. They just let Rick Renteria go. He didn't do anything wrong. He'd only been there 1 year. They were expected to suck. They sucked. They fired him so they could get Joe Madden, and it worked out. But kind of left Rick Renteria a little bummed. And in this situation, I think he got his chance. He made the playoffs with that team. Really interested to see if there's more to the story. I really do think there's more to the story. Will we ever find it out? I don't know. The White Sox are a fun young team. I don't quite know why a manager who wants to continue to manage would step away unless there was something more going on.
I mean, for me, he did something that no other manager for the team had been able to do in over a decade, and that was get them to a playoff. So, I mean, hats off to him for doing something that hasn't been done in years. I mean, look at the Marlins. But, yeah. But, I mean, maybe he's looking for somewhere else to go. Let's just say, if you had your pick, where would he go?
Well, see, the thing is, though, is because with this shortened season, I don't think we're going to see fires or firings. I mean, I know we saw Gardenhire in Detroit. Now, with all due respect to Detroit's system, I mean, if you're sticking around and you're looking around at talent, now Detroit might be getting there, but the White Sox are kind of where Detroit wants to be in terms of their young talent. It's all there. That's just kind of my point. I don't think we're seeing the people being fired like normal because everybody's kind of been given a pass. It's, even in the 60-game season, we dealt with, even the Pirates. I mean, can you really jump on? I'm sorry, I don't know who the Pirates manager is off the top of my head. I really want to say Clint Hurdle. I know it's not Clint Hurdle, but anyways, can you really jump on anybody's back when it's a situation where you got a call pretty much 2 weeks ago in July or 2 weeks in July and they said, okay, we're going to be ready to go, be ready to somehow deal with all of this. And they did. They failed. Most teams, only one team's going to be the winner. I wonder if it's, hopefully it's not health related. Hopefully everything's okay with anything like that. It's very interesting to me just because the White Sox are not necessarily a team that managers are running from. I think there are going to be a lot of managers that are now lining up for that. Now, who knows? The Red Sox job is open, and that's a job that comes with not necessarily the prospects, but the money. A lot of money. Anybody you want, that ownership group will go out and pay for them. And moving on to, unfortunately, this is the second episode of the ChangeUp.
It's just been a long season. Let's just say that.
It has. And I mean, 2020, folks, I don't think I have to tell that. And for baseball fans and really, fans of the game, it's been really tough the last month, losing a lot of legends. And obviously this week was no different. Whitey Ford and Joe Morgan, obviously two men that in their time were at the top of their game. Personally, too young to have seen these men play live. I've seen plenty of videos and heard plenty of stories. Whitey Ford, I've heard more quotes than anything and more stories about the guy. Joe Morgan, I feel like, I mean, if you grew up in the 90s and 2000s and you were a baseball fan, you were watching Sunday Night Baseball, and it was Joe Morgan and John Miller. And that was the end of your weekend for me. I mean, that was kind of like the last bit of joy you would have before school started the next day. And it's just very, very unfortunate to obviously lose these legends that, we continue, it seems like, daily to lose great men and great players in their time.
I mean, look, they're both Hall of Famers. Joe Morgan played, I believe, 21 seasons. Whitey Ford played 16, but he also enlisted in the Korean War for 2 years. So he stopped his career after 1 year just to go fight in a war and then returned to the same team. Joe Morgan played with multiple teams. And I mean, there are a lot of plaques that could be said for these teams. Like these players, they had a lot of accomplishments. Like obviously Whitey Ford and Cy Young, they both have won World Series. They've both been all-stars. Like there's just so much to their names. Obviously, Joe Morgan, before the Astros were even Astros, he was on the Colt 45s. I mean, let's just say that. I mean, obviously, I'm too young to have watched either of them. But I mean, they both had amazing careers. It just sucks that we're losing so many of these amazing former players in the last like month and a half.
Yeah, and it really is. And I like I very grateful you brought up, Whitey Ford, 16 years. I mean, 16 years is a long time to play baseball at the highest level.
While
And
having 2
then
years of enlisted in the army.
exactly. So you're there, you're at the top of your game, 2 years, go fight a war, come back. Okay, now we need you to be back at the top of your game. I mean, it's incredible.
I mean, for both them, Whitey Ford's numbers retired by the Yankees. Joe Morgan, his numbers retired by the Astros and the Reds. So, like, I mean, and they're in the Hall, and at least Joe Morgan's in the Hall of Fame for the Reds, the Astros, and obviously the regular Baseball Hall of Fame. Like, we're just losing so many Hall of Famers in this last month and a half. It just sucks.
Exactly. It's you keep seeing the memes or the pictures of the Field of Dreams, and it seems like they just keep adding players that are walking into those damn cornfields, and it's tough. But I hate to say it, but I feel like they're getting off easy. We're the ones that are stuck here in 2020. That what we got going on here in a month. Oh boy, yeah. So, but not to make light of that situation, but obviously, very, very unfortunate that. But they did live great lives, and they were very impactful. And like I said, Whitey Ford, not so much. I knew of him and heard stories, but Joe Morgan, for me, just I hear his voice right now. Everyone knows John Miller and Joe Morgan if you were a baseball fan growing up in the 90s and 2000s. So pass it all off to them. Bryanna, any final thoughts as we get ready for really this time next week? We will be talking World Series baseball as they are going to be rolling through the championship series. But the way things are going, these championship series might not last very long.
I mean, all I gotta say is go Rays, beat those cheating Astros, and go Braves because I really don't want to see the Dodgers in a World Series. Sorry, family.
Amen. And I am not sorry that I am pulling very.
I'm in LA. I have to.
And believe me, I all the Dodger fans have to do is roll their eyes when the Padre fans start to chirp at them because they're just like, we've won 8 straight division titles. We are kind of still the little brother, but we're putting on some weight. I'll tell you that right now. But I am pulling obviously very hard for the Rays to obviously, like you said, beat those cheating Astros. No team that's under 500 deserves to make any playoff in any sport ever, period. I'll go to my grave with that, even if the Padres ever do. And they almost did one year. I think they went 80 and 80 or 82 and 80 one time, but that's still over 500. But anyways, I digress. Also pulling really hard for the Braves for 2 reasons. Hatred of the Dodgers. So maybe that's just rooting against the Dodgers. Another one, also I'll throw 3 in there because I'm not very good at counting. One of my best friends, diehard Braves fan who is probably a little more calm right now, but has been probably breathing into a paper bag these last 48 hours. And third, back in July when I put my futures bets in, I picked the Braves $50 futures bet. I think I got it like plus 600. So that's a nice little, I think, $350, $400 return if they win the National League pennant. That would be nice. So hopefully they can help the bankroll because it's always needed in these difficult times. But those are our final thoughts. Thank you all so much for listening to the ChangeUp here with myself and Bryanna Winner. For Bryanna Winner, my name is Brandon First, aka First Report. And we will talk to you all very soon next week, talking World Series baseball. Thank you all again so much for listening. Now go wash your hands and stop hating everybody. Take care.